With Fallout Season 2 coming out, I got in the mood to play some old world blues. It's been a cool minute since I last played the mod, and I realized I've never done a full playthrough of some of the main nations, so I figured it's about time to give the new Californian Republic a go. The mod does the NCR justice by giving them a lot to do along with an interesting starting scenario. You'll see from Shady Sands springs a tree of liberty that has grown so large it covers most of California, and produces fruit so tasty that many who consume it think it is natural for any being to desire it. But that tree has failed to provide its fruit to everyone covered in its shade. And in these trying times for humanity, for every man that sees that tree as a source of food for their family, there is another who sees it as a source of wood for their throne. Like any other tree, it can't defend itself from an axe, so I'm gonna do my part to keep it safe. So, as expected, the NCR has quite the focus tree with everything you can do laid out on it, with at least 5 different possible paths you can go through. As is tradition with old world blues trees, you go through a few focuses that let you know about the lore and pick up some useful buffs. From here, we learned that although the NCR has expanded greatly to the glee of its residents, the leadership has made sure that the benefits have mainly been enjoyed by the elites that do little else besides fund their campaigns. This corruption has created stagnation in the NCR economy. Although President Kimball feels safe in office, there are opponents to his expansionist policy, like Senator Allgood Murphy and the followers of the Apocalypse, who want the money used to expand the borders and the wallets of the barons to go to the common man. In April, we faced our first crisis in the Navarro territories. Settlers from the Xi clashed with NCR officials, leaving 21 dead. Our garrison quickly lost control of the situation, with Xi settlers and natives taking up arms and engaging in open rebellion against the NCR. Kimball's administration had taken a big hit from the crisis, and Senator Murphy saw his chance to take him down with a vote of no confidence. From here, we get some focuses to rally Senate support against Kimball. The timing is pretty generous here, so you can easily do other stuff as you do this. You're allowed to send a very sizable force to help the Navarro territories, so winning this war ain't gonna be too hard. This isn't the only problem we're dealing with. Down south, the economic inequality is causing gang violence to explode in the hub, and we have to send troops to deal with it. It may have taken a whole nuclear Armageddon to do it, but Bakersfield is now a happening and prosperous city worth taking care of. Anyways, NCR reinforcements arrive in Navarro and begin pushing back against the Xi settlers. I don't expect them to be able to fight well since they're just simple farmers, until I notice a power armor division. My troops can barely scratch its paint, and I'm just wondering how they could afford that. Maybe because they are sponsored by War Thunder, just like this video is. I mean, y'all shouldn't be surprised that War Thunder survived nuclear Armageddon. When surviving the wasteland, you need cheap entertainment, and War Thunder is the biggest vehicle combat game out there and is free to play on PCs, consoles, and mobile devices. War may never change, but the weapons certainly do, and you can pilot or drive thousands of different vehicles from 10 nations ranging from the 1920s to current day. They put a lot of detail into modeling the vehicles and perfecting the sound to immerse you when you're driving, so it's no surprise that over 95 million players worldwide have already tried it out when there's so much to do in the game. For those who never played or haven't played in over 6 months, you should click on my link down in the description or pinned comment to get yourself a nice goodie bag if you play War Thunder on PC or console. It includes multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive vehicle decorator Eagle of Valor, 100k Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium account. You can play War Thunder for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile, so there's no cost to try it out. Just do it soon while the offer is good. Now back to California. Since that power armor is a problem, we deal with it the only way we can. We go around it, eventually surrounding the division, and then we pound them from every direction until they run out of energy. With their only heavy hitter dealt with, the Shi settlers don't have a chance against our troopers, and we run over the rest of their settlements. All that's left are the natives around Navarro, and since they don't have any foreign backing, the free folk don't have long for this world. We've gotten a big victory in Navarro, and with order restored to these lands, we can move in and directly control the area with cores. Unfortunately, despite the victory in Navarro, President Kimball is unable to plead his case to the Senate, and he loses the vote of no confidence. Allgood Murphy is now sitting at the driver's seat, ready to take the NCR in a different direction with a more internal focus. Things are looking up for the NCR. While Murphy is fixing the economy, in the Mojave, our troops easily run over the Brotherhood in the Hidden Valley. All that fancy power armor, and they didn't stand a chance against our Rangers. However, the Shi still seemed very upset about their failure to take over the Navarro territory. After some debates, the Akagahe had risen to power on an anti-NCR and expansionist agenda. This clearly meant that war between us was a matter of when instead of if. Now, although I expected the Shi to attack, I wasn't expecting it so soon. Not even 2 months later, they're demanding all of the Navarro territories, and that just ain't happening. I was expecting them to have some sort of ace up their sleeve with them declaring war on a nation so much bigger than they are, but no, this was like some War of the Triple Alliance situation where the little guy thinks he could just beat up his bigger neighbors based on vibes and aura. Once we initially broke their lines, we spread all over the Bay Area and easily subdued the Shi. Now, although Murphy is kinda running on a pacifist agenda, he does recognize the need to have a secure country, and really, we can't just have the divide here clogging up one of the 2 routes to the Mojave. Next up is the Rapids. They had the misfortune of putting their country between us and Caesar's Legion, right on some key crossings for the Colorado River too. If it's not us that takes them over, it's gonna be the Legion, so I choose us. Any dissenters to that can quickly be shut up with the news that the Legion is making its first attempt on the Hoover Dam. Fortunately, Lee Oliver is shutting down those savages, but it'd be naive to believe that this would be the only attack the Legion would do against us. In June, election season began for the NCR. While Murphy had done well so far, he still had his critics. A man named Grant C. Hayes took issue with Murphy's populist agenda and ran on the platform of government efficiency and using technology to make everyone's lives better. These platformers would compete over the main 5 states in the NCR over the next 6 months. The campaign did take a backseat in my priorities due to organizing the takeover of the Rapids and bringing Baja California under the NCR's wing. This would lead to some serious problems for the Republic because come January of next year, no winner of the election could be found. Full disclosure, this caught me completely by surprise. I didn't plan on this happening at all, but this is what I get for paying too much attention to Bo's charity tournament instead of playing the game. I had no saves to go back on too, so I'm playing this out, and now the NCR is about to face its biggest political crisis yet. President Murphy made a speech about the results, basically saying that since nobody could decide the next president, he was going to stay in charge. This did not play over well with the Senate or the nation at large. More troops were deployed in Shady Sands under the command of Cassandra Moore to bring order to the city, but sadly, despite their presence, they couldn't stop what happened next. This explosion had wiped out most of the NCR's high command, along with taking out President Murphy. The only survivor of the explosion was Ranger General Mossman, who worked with Major Moore to attempt to keep the peace in Shady Sands. After barely escaping with his life, Mossman wanted to bring order once and for all to the Republic, so he declared the formation of the Committee for National Security and led troops to march on the Senate to defend California from its subversive actions. Mossman had established himself as the leader of the NCR, but there were many people who weren't going to accept that. From San Francisco to the tip of Baja California, forming the Californian Way group. But before Mossman could respond to the rebellion, he was betrayed and killed by Cassandra Moore, who sought to consolidate power under her rule.
Wasted it.
The past few weeks of violence had deprived the Californian Way of a lot of potential leadership, but there was still hope out there. Amongst the followers of the apocalypse in Dayglow was a man named Bill Calhoun. Some of you may recognize that name. He was the physician that accompanied the infamous Edward Sallow and Joshua Graham on that fateful journey to Arizona.
When I was 20, the followers sent me east to Grand Canyon. It was my first expedition. Just me and a physician named Calhoun. Anyway, we met up with a Mormon missionary who already knew a bunch of dialects. Joshua Graham.
Edward Sallow and Bill Calhoun. They came to teach the tribes. Calhoun was a good man. Edward was the one who got us into trouble down the road.
Another to be lashed to a sinking ship. So over Calhoun's objections, I decided to take certain steps.
This way lies the path to hell. Caesar needed me to translate. Translation became giving orders. Giving orders became leading in battle.
Once my confederation of tribes was large enough, I crowned myself Caesar and created a single great tribe, my legion. I sent Calhoun, the follower captured with me, back west with a message that I should not be interfered with.
Bill was a pacifist before that trip, but after seeing and hearing what's happened since his time in Arizona, he knows that it's not enough to just protect yourself against evil. You must be proactive and fight it anywhere so it doesn't get a chance to spread. On June 15th, 2278, Bill is gonna finally get his chance to correct the wrongs of the wasteland. A desert ranger by the name of Angela Death, yes, that Angela Death from the Wasteland series, flies over to him in Dayglow to secure him from any attempt by Moore to assassinate him. Not all rangers are on board with Moore's militaristic and authoritarian agenda. Angela and her rangers see themselves as a shield for the innocent, and believe Bill Calhoun is the right man for the job of leading the Californian Way. Now, I will say, just looking at what we got in the split, we are so much better off. We got the industry of most of the major cities in California, plus a massive amount of troops. There's a lot of militia mixed in, but we did keep a good chunk of the proper NCR army. The only thing that sucks is that we are strapped for generals. We're gonna have to build up our officer corps from scratch, basically. Fortunately, despite having more military experience, Moore doesn't really show it by declaring war on me without having her troops properly stationed on the front line. So I'm able to start the war off with some easy encirclement and put the initiative firmly in my favor. I wasn't expecting to struggle much with this war, and then the focus tree makes it even easier by spawning in 7 veteran, full-strength ranger divisions along with a lot more militia. As I'm pushing in, I realize that the Mojave territories are also on my side in the form of the Mojave Rangers, and totally ready to strike down Moore's tyranny. With their entering the war, I can easily cut the Californian state in half. Poor Moore thought with enough guns and killing a few important people, she could scare the Californian people into submission, but she's quickly finding out that she had way overplayed her hand. Now, there's an army of people that vastly outnumbers her own and is quickly destroying every obstacle she places between it and her HQ in Shady Sands. By the time the Californian Way reaches Shady Sands, she doesn't even have any forces of her own to protect it. But for some reason, Vault City decides to come in at the 11th hour and die for a lost cause. They keep the fight going on for 2 more weeks before I finally kick them out of the capital and force the Californian state to surrender. With our victory, it was time for Moore to face justice for betraying the flag she claimed to serve. and I thought it was appropriate for that justice to be carried out by the people she claimed to be protecting. This was a major victory for freedom-loving people everywhere in the wasteland, but it wasn't the only big one happening. We soon get word that Lanius' capital, Red Sun City, had been overrun by the Scrappers Compact, so it was only a matter of time before he was gonna die. There was still work to do at home though. Northern California remained under the control of the other breakaway state of Redding, and while Calhoun tolerated their neutrality in the fight against Moore, it was time to bring them back into the fold. They have even less troops than Moore did, so I can just battle plan here without thinking about it. However, another big update from the east. Apparently the Whitelegs, who formed the state of the Milites Altorias, after joining with Caesar's Legion, got involved with Lanius' conquest and are probably regretting it a lot now. The Scrappers Compact is walking in their front door and nobody is home. In July 2279, Redding was finally reunited with the rest of California. But before I even get time to think about what to do next, Caesar launches his second offensive to take the Hoover Dam. Now, obviously, the Mojave Rangers aren't gonna last too long against the combined might of the Legion, so I have to rush over my troops from Northern California to the Colorado River to prepare for our fight. Although our military took a big blow from this past year of fighting a civil war, we have a lot of industry at our disposal to build it up. Plus, we're going to be on the defensive. I send my best units to guard the crossings near the Hoover Dam, and with the support of the Mojave Rangers, things are secured pretty quick. The only concerning sector is the crossings near the riverside, where my troops are getting hammered hard and the Legion is not giving them a chance to breathe. I sent reinforcements and a bit of air support, but it's not enough to stop the Legion from getting across the river. With this in danger of turning into a major breakthrough, I try to take some pressure off the riverside sector by launching my own offensive across the Hoover Dam. My Rangers and motorized divisions work together to punch through Caesar's lines and soon encircle the Legion troops that were threatening the dam. This did attract Legion reinforcements, but they weren't coming from Riverside. Their beachhead was only getting larger, and there wasn't much I could do about it at this point. I can't train more troops since I'm in the hole for guns. We have to fight with what we have on the field. At least I can take comfort in the fact that Caesar lost two of his biggest allies, so it could have been a lot worse for me. That doesn't mean things aren't pretty bad though. Caesar is overrunning the southern Mojave, and I need to rethink my defensive plan here. We make all our troopers retreat to hold more defensible choke points to slow the Legion down. Although we are outnumbered, time is on our side. If we can limit the Legion's gains against us, we'll eventually build up the army needed to go on the counterattack. Unfortunately, defending against the Legion is a lot easier said than done. The aggression and disregard for human life made it very hard to establish good defensive positions with forts, so the choke points around Baja California didn't hold for too long, and they quickly swept over the whole peninsula. They also pushed me back to Palm Springs, but it was becoming increasingly clear that the main focus of their offensive was the city of Dayglow. There were a lot of factories and resources there, and it would definitely be a painful loss for me and a big boost for the Legion, but there's also a personal reasoning there too. That was Bill Calhoun's home before he became the leader of the Californian Way, and perhaps Bill's old friend Edward thought it'd be especially hurtful to Bill that he couldn't protect his home. The Californian troops tried their best to hold the Legion in the suburbs, but the northeastern defense was faltering under the pressure of the Legion's elite troopers, and eventually they pushed deep into the city. I didn't want to give up this city just yet. If we stay here, we force the Legion to commit a lot of troops to take us out of here, which not only gives us the opportunity to cause a lot more damage to the Legion with brutal urban combat, but also buys the main Californian front time since the troops committed to Dayglow won't be able to push there. This was very risky since this made the approach to the Boneyard very lightly defended, but The Legion was unable to really take advantage of that. The blade that pierced through the Mojave had been dulled over the past 9 months of war. Although I had lost a lot of ground, my fighting retreat across the desert had done a lot of damage to the Legion's armies. This fight was still far from over though. Losing that land now meant the Legion had more military factories than me, so they had the means to keep up this offensive pace for a while. After 2 months of putting up a valiant defense in Dayglow, Californian troops were forced back to the shores. It was time to start evacuating them from the area. Not everyone would be able to escape sadly, but despite losing this city, they did their job well. The main front had barely progressed during this battle, and since that fight required so little investment from me, my military had gotten considerably stronger with better equipment in the field and finally some new divisions training. The veterans from Dayglow would immediately set up in the Boneyard to defend it from the Legion's next attack. But while they fought there, in the east, I saw a chance to finally go on the offensive for once. The lines were thinner, and the flat open ground meant my motorized units could make a big play to cut off a few unlucky Legion troops. We got some good kills here, but the Legion was making their own moves in the center. They made a huge breakthrough in the middle and were pouring through it. At first, I did little to respond to it because I thought, while they were thinning out their flanks, I could do more damage with pockets and eventually cut them off. But as I looked at the bigger picture, I realized that's what they were going to do to me soon, so I needed to contain this. I redeployed and pushed in on both sides of the funnel, cutting off a sizable Legion force. I was thinking that was a wrap for that offensive, but I should have known that Caesar wasn't going to give up on this offensive that easily. He kept sending troops to break out the pocket, and I'd have to fight hard to reclose it. There was a back and forth that went on for months with Caesar committing more and more troops. The front lines were all over the place. I'd pocket them, they'd pocket me. I think Caesar knew he couldn't wear me down before exhausting everything he had, so he was going all in on forcing a large, decisive battle against me to take over the Mojave. He ran very far behind our lines to cut off supply routes and, to his credit, did reach the Sierra Nevada mountains, splitting my forces in two. However, by putting so much into the spearhead of the offensive, Caesar had left his flanks so vulnerable to counterattack, and I took advantage of it. My troops in the Boneyard and the ones still manning the front in the southern Mojave started pushing southwards to converge around Palm Springs. While this attack goes on, I'm going to be creating some headaches for the Legion to deal with, like starting an uprising in Arizona. Later that month, we finally bring the pincers together in 2 different places, creating pockets Caesar no longer has the forces to break out. It's gonna take a while to clean up all these isolated troops, but with this done, the Legion ain't coming back from this loss. This was an all or nothing move, and now the question of victory for the Californian way is firmly a question of when instead of if. The Arizona Rangers rise up at the end of the month, and they will be very useful for pulling off more Legion troops from the front to make my liberation of SoCal easier. Unlike the Legion, we do care about our people here, so I rush down the Colorado River to try to link up with their forces. While I do that, I do my best to support their fight with some air support. The next several months are spent cleaning up the Legion pockets in the Mojave Desert and mountains they ran to, while also liberating the territory they took from me. In July, the final holdouts of Legion troops are finally mopped up. Caesar's Legion has now hit 80,000 casualties, with a total of over 100,000 for the whole faction. Not sure how the Mojave Rangers lost 14,000 though. They've literally been sitting in their own land this whole time. Anyways, with the Legion a fraction of its strength now, I can just battle plan through Arizona. Any Legion soldiers remaining in Arizona are just speed bumps to the Californian army. At the end of the year, Caesar's Legion capitulates to our forces, but we still have to fight another month and a half, destroying his remaining allies before we finally get the peace deal. The Californian way has brought peace to the Southwest. And soon it's time for Bill Calhoun to meet his old friend one last time. Although he can't undo the death and destruction Edward has caused over the past few decades, he can make sure he never hurts anyone again. With that done, this campaign is pretty much over. There is some stuff about managing the resistance in Arizona, but it's a nothing burger. You've seen all the good stuff. Quite a fun campaign though. You know, originally my plan was I set up a strong legion and fight them as All-Good Murphy, but things really went off the rails with the Civil War. Shout out to the Scrappers Compact for taking out 2 of the biggest members of Caesar's Legion. They pretty much saved my ass considering I barely held against what Caesar threw at me. I definitely couldn't have managed 2 more countries also throwing stuff at me. Anyways, that's all for the video. Like the video if you enjoyed it so other people can see it too. Remember to check out today's sponsor War Thunder and start blowing stuff up. It's available for free on PC, Xbox, PlayStation, and mobile. All you gotta do is click my link down below. Don't forget that if you're a new player or returning player after a 6-month break, when you click it, you'll get on PC or console some cool stuff like premium vehicles, extra currency, and more. Thank you to my alumni also generously funding my content. Y'all mean a lot to me. I got one more video for y'all this year and I hope to see you again for it. Bye bye.